Hey, I'm Pat. Welcome to Bible U. Today we're going to talk about heaven and hell. There is no such thing as heaven and hell. Now wait. Don't shut this off yet. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. One of our primary problems is that it seems that almost every time we talk about heaven or hell, we talk about heaven and hell. It's always, let's talk about heaven and hell, except that the Bible never does this. Meaning the Bible never does talk about heaven and hell as counterparts in the same dialogue, the way that we do. However, it does incessantly talk about heaven and earth. Now, don't misunderstand me. I didn't say that the Bible doesn't talk about hell. It does, but it will cloud our understanding of hell or heaven when we always connect it to heaven as a counterpart, because the Bible doesn't do this. Now, let me disappoint some of you and let you know that I'm not going to unwrap all of the specifics about hell or heaven. I'm not going to tell you exactly what to believe about these two places. What I will do is to try and provide a biblical paradigm or a biblical perspective to this conversation that may help you comprehend the fact that we will not understand hell if we don't understand heaven and earth. What do I mean by that? The Bible will talk often about heaven and earth. There are nearly 200 passages that connect heaven and earth. In fact, the story actually starts with heaven and earth in perfect harmony. Notice the first chapters of Genesis do not say God created heaven and earth and hell. It says He created the heavens and the earth, and they were in perfect harmony, which is why He says at the end of each day of His creation, it's good, it's good, it's good, it's good. And then He gets to the pinnacle of His creation, humans, and He says, it's very good. Boom. Sin enters, and heaven and earth are no longer in perfect harmony. Then after Genesis chapter 3, this becomes one massive story of God bringing heaven and earth back into harmony. It's a story of how His Son had to pay the price of His life to bring heaven and earth back into harmony. It's a story that involves you and I as part of this redemptive story, which is why when Jesus taught us to pray, part of His prayer was, Thy kingdom come, Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We're actually bringing heaven and earth into harmony when we feed hungry people, when we care for the marginalized, when we fight injustices, when we stand against racism, when we display love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control. So the story begins with heaven and earth in perfect harmony, and the story ends with heaven and earth in perfect harmony. In Revelation chapter 21, it speaks to the end of the story, and it says this, Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. Now, the Greek word that's used there actually means new in quality or superior in character. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the old heaven and the old earth had disappeared. And the sea was also gone. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven like a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. I heard a loud shout from the throne saying, Look, God's home is now among His people. He will live with them, and they will be His people, and God Himself will be with them. He will wipe every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death or sorrow or crying or pain. All these things are gone forever. Heaven and earth in harmony. Let me repeat this one more time because it's imperative we get this. The biblical narrative has three major movements. First, heaven and earth are created by God and are in perfect harmony. There's Shalom. Second, heaven and earth are torn by sin. Heaven and earth are no longer in perfect harmony. There is no longer Shalom. Third, heaven and earth are destined for reconciliation. To be put back into perfect harmony, there will once again be Shalom. So what's my point? My point is that the primary counterpart to heaven in the Bible is not hell, which is how most of us always think. But instead, the primary counterpart to heaven in the Bible is earth. This is critical to understand because it should change how you think of both heaven and hell. Again, sorry to disappoint some of you, but my goal in this is not to dictate how exactly you should think about these, but to give you a new lens. The lens the Bible gives us to view these heaven or hell through. You see, because my lens, my personal lens has changed to this biblical narrative, my view of heaven someday, the heaven we're longing for, has changed drastically from what I thought of as a young person. For years, I didn't want to tell anybody that I kind of dreaded the thought of heaven because I assumed it was some kind of version of a boring church service, except that it would never end. Like it was one long, monotonous, dreadful religious experience. Let's be honest, that's not exactly a heavenly thought. However, now that I recognize that the Bible actually speaks about this place, this future place as being heaven and earth in perfect harmony, there are times when I get so excited just thinking about it. When I'm out in the ocean or see the beauty of the ocean and I think, oh, we're gonna experience something like this, only better. When I see a scene from a mountaintop and I look out over a valley and I go, oh, this is what the new heavens and the new earth are going to be like, only better. Sometimes when I see pictures on my phone of a beautiful location, I realize I'm never going to get to go visit that probably in this life. And then I go, oh, it's okay. I'm going to spend eternity in something that's like that, only better. Sometimes when I go out and I look up in the night sky and I see the stars, and I think to myself, someday we'll figure out how to travel out there. Maybe not in this lifetime, but in the new heavens and the new earth. You see, now I get excited when I think about it. When I go to funerals and I go sit back in the car sometimes and I'm just overwhelmed with the grief that I watch these people have. And I think someday Jesus will take this death away forever. When I see poverty and injustices and I realize someday, heaven and earth are going to be in perfect harmony and there will not be any more poverty or racism or injustices ever again, ever. Then I start getting excited about heaven. Let me tell you something else the Bible never does that we often do with this idea of heaven and hell. We point. We say things like, can't wait to get up there to heaven because I sure don't want to go down there to hell. The Bible never talks about heaven being up and hell being down. What it does do is talk about heaven and earth being brought back into perfect harmony, and it does talk often about hell, but not that it's down there, but that it's out there. You see, Jesus and the New Testament writers tell us that hell is not going underground, but that it will be kicked outside of the city. Jesus and the New Testament writers use words like Gehenna, which was the valley of Hinnom in the Old Testament, which we often translate into hell. When you read hell in the Bible, it's really the word Gehenna. You see, the valley of Gehenna and the valley of Hinnom were actually places that were outside of the city. The valley of Hinnom was a valley where the nation of Israel had cheated on God with other lovers, where child sacrifices had been made to false gods, where detestable, horrific things took place as they worshiped themselves and other gods. The valley of Gehenna is a valley outside the city where trash was burned. You see, hell isn't described in the Bible as being down there, but out there. And that's important because what is happening outside the city will be very different than what is happening inside the city. It's important that you recognize hell isn't down there, but out there, because inside the city is where you will experience God in all His glory, where you will see heaven and earth in perfect harmony, where you will find perfect shalom. And outside the city is the absolute absence of God. So often we get hell wrong and we get heaven wrong because we get heaven and earth wrong. Next time you think of heaven or hell, make sure you get rid of the idea that heaven is somewhere up there and hell is somewhere down there. Stop thinking of heaven and hell, but instead think of heaven and earth. The story begins with heaven and earth in perfect harmony and ends with heaven and earth in perfect harmony.